Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in select states. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Your look at conservation news from across the nation for the week of May 12th, 2025. This week, brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, Richard Childress Racing, and Ducks Unlimited. Thank you for your support. Let's get into this week's show. This week, our lead story, bill to stop foreign evasion of conservation funding introduced in the Senate. We welcome back Chris Horton to cover this with that update and from that angle. North Dakota legislative session recap, enhancements to the Alaska Big Game Commercial Service Board proposed. CSF priority forest management legislation receives hearing in the Senate Ag Committee. And finally, blue laws still a barrier for hunting in Connecticut. All that and much, much more. But let us welcome now Chris in with his update on this very important piece of legislation heading to the Senate. Chris, welcome.
Hey, Fred. Good to see you.
Indeed. So what do we got going on? We know we had a good bill from Representative Panetta and Moore in the House. What are we looking at here in the Senate?
Yeah, as listeners will probably recall that tune in to the show regularly, back in February, the Sporting Goods Excise Tax Modernization Act was introduced in the House by Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus co-chair Jimmy Panetta and CSC member Blake Moore. And fortunately, on the Senate side, Senator Tommy Tuberville, as well as Senator Mike Crapo, has recently introduced that in the Senate, and just in time to hopefully have this as part of the reconciliation package.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really important bill for the states and for the sportsman's community and for conservation funding, the future of conservation funding in this country.
Do we know, is most of the language in the Senate version much of the same as our House version, or has anything been
Nope,
adjusted?
it's virtually the same,
Great.
and it's based on a prescription by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, that released a report last year that basically said, yeah, this is a problem, and we are seeing a slippage of conservation funding from foreign manufacturers, and the only fix is federal legislation to close that loophole. So it's a very prescriptive, surgical fix. So yeah, the language is the same in both chambers.
Well, that's good because it passed so well out of the House, and we expect I think the same out of the Senate, right?
Well, it hasn't passed out of the House yet, but
Oh, my correction. I stand corrected. Sorry about that. I thought we had moved through that already.
no. But the good news is that in all of our discussions on the Hill, this issue is something that's truly bipartisan. That everybody agrees that yes, we've got to protect this highly unique system of conservation funding that we have here in the United States. The reason we have the abundant fish and wildlife populations we have today, because it's this user pays public benefit system has really worked, and we've restored wildlife and populations and fish populations and fish habitat like no other country in the world, and that's on the backs of hunters and anglers and the industry that we support. They pay the excise tax on fishing tackle, on archery equipment, on firearms and ammunition, marine fuel tax. All that comes back into the pot that comes back to the states for fish and wildlife management.
Well, very good. And again, my apologies for getting ahead of getting out on our skis on that. I hope I didn't jinx anything, but I don't think I did. It sounds like it's being well received, and that the audience is watching part of this podcast. You'll see I'm not in my normal setting, and I am on the road as we wrapped up our Congressional Clays event here in Prince George County. And as this drops on Wednesday, I believe most of our members will have already gone through some reconciliation votes in their respective committees, as the members all enjoyed their shoot, but also had to get back to the Hill quickly. So, can we expect some updates here post this podcast dropping within this week?
I don't know if it'll be within this week, but
Mhm.
but obviously reconciliation is kind of the first play with this. It's revenue positive because again we're capturing taxes on foreign manufacturers that are currently evading those taxes by selling direct to consumer through online marketplaces, and most of the average consumers don't know that actually technically they're responsible. It's the
Mhm.
first point of sale; they're responsible for paying the tax on that equipment. So. Um, again, it's viewed positively by both Republicans and Democrats in both chambers. So the reconciliation plays is sort of the first one, but we do have other opportunities to pass this, whether it be standalone, but that's probably least likely. But we also have the Sportfish Restoration Boating Trust Fund reauthorization that's in the works now. So this is an obvious place for that to fit as well. But it'd be ideal if we can go ahead and get this fixed this first half um, of this Congress here in the coming weeks or month.
Yeah, agreed. Well, very good. Um, yeah, you said it's a quick update, and thanks for your time. Um, we do have some time. I want to give you the floor if there's anything else you want to update on beyond your lead article here for this week. Otherwise, we can call it good.
No, thanks for the time again, Fred. And one of the things that I continue to work on is we're getting close to introduction. I've been saying that for a while, but we really are getting close, I think, to having all parties um, on board with potential language changes to the Reef legislation that we
Oh, good.
introduced in the last Congress that we had a couple of episodes on. Be looking for that here in the coming weeks, and we're going to hit the ground running with that, and hopefully, sometimes you introduce legislation so you can get folks talking about it and discussing what they like about it, what they don't, and then sometimes you can amend that through the process while it's in Congress through an amendment before it goes to markup in committee. But we ran out of time last time, so this time we're trying to get the bill right as close as we can to being right whenever we introduce it, so that hopefully it'll pass very swiftly through both chambers.
Well, very good. Well, we all look forward to that for sure because on this program we've been talking about it for a while. So, and it's certainly an excitable issue, and like to see it get put to practice. So, good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, sir. Well, good to see you. Thanks for the quick update here, and we'll talk to you no doubt in the coming weeks.
All right. Thanks so much, Fred.
All right, Chris. Thank you. All right, my thanks to Chris once again for always making the time, getting on, and talking about the issues he's working on. And we will have updates as they come. Moving on to news from around the country, let us head to North Dakota and get a legislative recap from Jake Gould. North Dakota legislative session saw its fair share of legislation that would have had an impact on sportsmen and women, the state fish and wildlife agency, and wildlife. CSF actively engaged on legislation that would have limited hunting access on public and private property, restricted state fish and wildlife agency from creating baiting regulations, and prohibited the agency from using hunting license funds on anything related to CWD. The highlights here for legislation that Jake wants to talk about: House Bill 1236 was defeated and would have prohibited North Dakota Game and Fish Department from using funds from hunting and fishing licenses on anything related to the research of CWD. Senate Bill 2137 that was enacted prohibits the state agency from adopting and implementing any policies on baiting or supplemental feeding for the purposes of big game hunting on private property. We covered that one recently. Senate Bill 2168 was defeated, and that would have required hunters to have permission from neighboring landowners to hunt within 440 yards of a building, even if the structure were not located on the property they were hunted. The two pieces of legislation were aimed at undermining the Wildlife Management Authority. Those two were 2137 and House Bill 1236, as we just covered. Also defeated, going back to 2168, upholding the current statute when hunting near occupied structures. If past hunters would be required to obtain permission from neighboring property owners to hunt their own land or public land. If the neighboring landowner has a building within 440 yards of the property's border, severely restricting access for hunters on both private and public lands. CSF submitted testimony in opposition to the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. Fortunately, that bill failed, allowing access to hunting land without requiring permission to hunt within 440 yards of a structure. That's kind of crazy, especially as it concerns your own private property. I'd be curious where the number comes from, why that distance. Typically, you see these in increments of 100 or 500, but I'm sure there's a reason. We did cover the baiting issue, like I said, recently. That was unfortunate. Hopefully, there's still time to revisit that in the future and hopefully correct that. We thank Jake for that look back there. That was North Dakota. Let us head to Alaska. Bree Newmiller reports on enhancements to the Alaska Big Game Commercial Services Board. Comprised of 9 governor-appointed volunteer members, the Alaska Big Game Commercial Services Board is responsible for regulating and overseeing commercial big game hunting and transportation services, ensuring public safety, wildlife management, and professional standards. A bill proposal working its way through the Alaska State Legislature aims to enhance that current structure by creating a permanent paid executive administrator position. Alaska Senate Bill 29, proposed by Alaska Legislative Outdoor Heritage Caucus co-chair Senator Jesse Bjorkman, aims to bring continuity to the Alaska Big Game Commercial Services Board by creating the permanent position of executive administrator. Additional updates in the bill would give the governor-appointed board members oversight over the administrator. CSF is closely monitoring this bill's progress and is working with our partners to ensure the sporting conservation voice is maintained in this legislation. Alaska's rugged wilderness draws hunters worldwide, many of whom rely on professional guides and outfitters to navigate its challenging terrain in the pursuit of iconic big game species like brown bear, moose, and Dall sheep. These guided hunts, often the culmination of years of preparation, are the cornerstone of Alaska's outdoor economy and cultural heritage. Ensuring these services operate ethically and sustainably while protecting existing businesses has been an ongoing conversation among the Alaska outdoor community, including during events like the annual Sportsmen's Rendezvous and among members of the Alaska Legislative Outdoor Heritage Caucus. Senate Bill 29 from our caucus co-chair, Senator Bjorkman, during the 34th legislature aims to strengthen the Big Game Commercial Services Board by permanently establishing an executive administrator position to serve as a volunteer board's principal executive officer. The bill also guides the board to establish qualifications and duties for the executive administrator. Currently, the Alaska Big Game Commercial Services Board is responsible for regulating and overseeing all commercial big game hunting and transportation services in Alaska. Their oversight includes licensing, guide outfitter examinations, regulations and standards, disciplinary actions, policy development, and conservation coordination with the Department of Fish and Game in Alaska. Proponents of Senate Bill 29 hope that creating a permanent ongoing administrator will ensure continuity, stability, and industry confidence. Supported by coalition partners like Safari Club International and the Alaska Professional Hunters Association, Senate Bill 29 has passed out of the Alaska State Senate and has moved to the House Resource Committee. CSF has been following the bill closely as it progresses through the state legislature and will and is working with our caucus members and coalition partners to ensure that the policies enhance wildlife conservation and support sustainable access to Alaska's big game hunting opportunities for sportsmen and women. I would love to revisit this with Marie because it sounds like it's a pretty detailed and probably an issue that needs to be talked about in some depth here, so that a lot of us, especially a lot of us in the lower 48, understand better what is at play, and what the advantages of something like this are. It 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 is a different world up there, and certainly there's different considerations for hunting, and those of us who have looked at and planned, as Marie rightly points out, this is years in the culmination of preparation uh, for these hunts, and I suspect there's a level of wanting to make sure that outsiders who are, non-residents who are coming in, to include people from other countries that are directly contributing to that economy and conservation, are getting a fair and good experience. Guess we'll find out more as the bill progresses and Marie brings that to us. But certainly an interesting look at how this stuff, conservation politics, plays out in a state like Alaska. Next up, CSF priority forest management legislation receives a hearing in the Senate Ag Committee. This from John Colclasure. The Fix Our Forest Act would expand authorities and collaborative tools to support forest restoration treatments in high priority fire sheds to reduce severe wildfire risk. Reforming federal forest management is a top priority for CSF to address wildfire crisis by enabling the efficient implementation at scale of forest health and wildlife habitat improvement projects on public land important to sportsmen and women. The highlights here: more than 117 million acres of fire-prone forest on federal land threaten watersheds, fish, and wildlife habitat, communities, and access for sportsmen and women. Already this year, 24,415 fires have burned more than 1 million acres across the country. And the traditional wildfire season has not even started. The Fix Our Forest Act would increase forest resiliency by promoting science-based active forest management through policy improvements long supported by the sportsman's community, including litigation reform, increased categorical exclusion acreages, and streamlined environmental reviews. On May 6th, the Senate Committee on Ag, Nutrition, and Forestry held a legislative hearing on the bipartisan Fix Our Forest Act, sponsored by Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus member Senator John Curtis, John Heckenlooper, Alex Padilla, and Tim Sheehy. Senate 1462 is the Senate version of the House version of the Fix Our Forest Act 471, led by CSC co-chair Representative Bruce Westerman, who also supported by CSF, which passed the House in January, 279 to 141. CSF submitted a statement in support of Senate 1462 and previously submitted a statement in support of 471 in the House when the Subcommittee on Conservation, Forestry, Natural Resources, and Biotechnology held a hearing on 471 in March. Acting Associate Chief of the U.S. Forest Service, Chris French, testified that the U.S. Department of Ag supports the legislation. French said, quote, USDA strongly supports streamlining NEPA procedures under the National Environmental Protection Act and expanding existing categorical exclusions to reduce wildfire risk and improve forest health, end quote. French also noted the importance of fixing the 2015 Cottonwood decision that has been used by environmental groups to delay critical forest restoration work, and cited the increased project costs in Forest Service region, where habitat projects are regularly litigated. Additionally, French stated that the U.S. Forest Service annually harvests less than 0.1% across the entire national forest system, which shows how little of our national forest system is actively managed, underscoring the need for reforms. CSF appreciates the Ag Committee for holding this timely hearing as we approach wildfire season. CSF additionally thanks our sponsors for both versions of the Fix Our Forest Act for their leadership on this important issue and for Sportsmen and the community, and looks forward to working with them to see Fix Our Forest Act signed into law this year. Wrapping it up, we're going to head to the Northeast to Connecticut. This from Christian Ragosta. CSF has been actively working to advance legislation to permit expanded Sunday hunting opportunities in Connecticut. After 10 years since the original bill to allow archery hunting of deer on Sundays passed, and on a bipartisan vote, a negotiated bill to expand Sunday hunting opportunities further has now left the Joint Committee on Environment, House Bill 7231. If passed, this bill would permit hunting during all seasons, including the use of firearm, if permitted for that season on private property of 10 acres or more. CSF is optimistic on the chances of this bill getting a floor vote before the end of the session. Hunting during all regulated seasons, including the use of a firearm as permitted for that season on private property of 10 acres or more, as we just said, would be allowed. Bow hunting deer on private property and some wildlife management areas on Sunday would continue to be permitted as per current regulations. The legislation passed the Joint Committee on Environment by a bipartisan vote of 30-3 and one absent. In 2015, then Governor Dan Malloy, a member of the Governor's Sportsmen's Caucus, signed into law the ability for bow hunting deer on Sundays to occur on private property in some wildlife management areas with written consent from the property owner. The hunting opportunities on Sunday over the past decade have provided private property owners and the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, increased resources to manage wildlife resources in the state. This year's legislation is a further positive step, which would significantly expand Sunday hunting opportunities and result in still greater conservation benefits. Opponents of permitting Sunday hunting in Connecticut are resorting to numerous disingenuous and outright untrue statements about hunters and the intent of this negotiated legislation. One legislator said during testimony that allowing hunting on Sundays on private property would infringe on the public's ability to hike on that property. Trespassing in Connecticut is against the law, and knowingly trespassing on private land is a misdemeanor offense for both hunting and hiking, just like the Sunday allowances for bow hunting of deer from 2015. Hunters need to get written permission from private property owners to be on that land to hunt. Other opponents are attempting to conflate Sunday hunting opportunities with efforts to open a bear season. Animal advocacy groups have made completely false claims contrary to existing science from numerous other states and the DEEP about the intent of Sunday hunting. One such statement was, quote, expanding hunting under the pretense of wildlife control is misleading, especially since hunting doesn't effectively reduce conflicts with bears, end quote. False statements like this are an attempt to deny the scientifically proven form of wildlife management practice, like hunting. These groups use this as a blatant attempt to coerce individuals to use the polarized issue of a Connecticut bear hunt with the allowing access for hunters to hunt on private land. The bipartisan nature of this legislation to expand Sunday hunting, both co-sponsored across party lines, as well as being passed out of committee with a massively favorable and bipartisan vote, exemplifies the work of the Connecticut Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus to be able to educate fellow legislators. CSF continues to monitor the legislation and will be having conversations with legislators in both chambers to make sure the floor vote is taken to expand Sunday hunting this year. with a nearly unanimous vote to come out of committee, and motivated legislators from both political parties, supporters are feeling optimistic to advance this long worked issue, knowing that a more comprehensive legislative fix for all Sunday hunting opportunities will be discussed in the future sessions. In the last week or two, we definitely have covered this Sunday hunting issue in our coverage. And here, again, more opportunity to chip away at that, and more examples of just bad arguments and trying to, I think, put individuals' own personal fears and hangups on an entire community. Um, and I don't know how you help individuals with that and get over that. It is interesting, and I absolutely love that Christian included that piece about, people wanting to hike on Sunday and hunting interferes with that on private property, admitting to trespassing, which is just, it's wild, but it's also this sense of entitlement that is perpetuated. Uh, Surely in the Northeast we experience it, but I want to say that other across the country there is this sense of entitlement, whether that come from the non-hunting public that think they can go to and fro and sell and admit that they trespass and I get to go walk in the woods free of hunters, but don't mind the purple marks or the yellow signs or whatever the designation is. You should not be here without permission. And then conversely, in our some small part of our community, you have folks that are entitled that think they should be allowed to do something they've been doing for decades when those yellow signs or purple marks are instituted and create new private property barriers that you're not supposed to go on. So, you know, where we are not completely guiltless in that entitlement mindset. Um, However, I don't see a lot of people going out there hunting on Sunday when you're not supposed to. I think that would be considered poaching. So, um, as we've covered in the past, poachers going to poach. It's got nothing to do with the lawful, regulated, prescribed hunting that is on the books and that the majority of the sporting community abides by. But back to the issue of Sunday hunting. Look, we just got to move forward with this and call out the bad arguments for bad arguments and let the professionals make their arguments for it and why it's a benefit, as Christian's article spells out. There's more upside to this than not. And again, back to the hikers, the bird watchers, the anybody that doesn't want us out there because they think somehow they're going to be negatively affected. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, your local sportsman or woman does not want to be anywhere near you on your hike, your bicycle ride, your bird watching treks, because you are counterproductive to our pursuits. I don't know how else to put it. Um, your presence causes a direct negative effect on our pursuits. So believe me, we're not looking to cross your paths. None of us are looking to be out there um, to interrupt your enjoyment and vice versa. So believe me, the greatest of efforts are put into avoiding all other human contact as the sporting community goes out and chases their pursuits. Um, no offense, and I hope no offense is taken. It's just the truth of the matter. And, you know, dog walkers and bird watchers don't attract deer, or turkey, or any other thing we're out there for. So we'll leave it at that. Hopefully, Christian will report back. I know he is this week headed up. The caucus is having an event, first event in a long time, if not maybe for the first time. And it's certainly exciting. The caucus is motivated. They're in Connecticut looking to do good things on behalf of the sporting community, recognizing our place in management, our place in who funds and contributes to DEP and how this all works, right? So uh, hopefully we'll get some coverage of that from Christian, or he'll be able to report back, and hopefully this carries this wave of momentum and positive thinking on potential changes to Sunday hunting in Connecticut. All right, that's it for our show on location in Maryland as we wrap up our Congressional Clays shoot earlier today and this week's reporting. I had said in the coming weeks you're going to get coverage of Congressional Clays. Unfortunately, I got to rescind that due to scheduling conflicts, reconciliation votes, everything that's going on down here. Our caucus members had to come in earlier, had a great time, and then they had to beat feet to go do the work on the Hill. So because of that truncated time with them, we were unable to appreciate any time with them, unfortunately, and we're fine with that. We get that, and they're going to go do their work. So all I have to say, this year we will not have sound from the event. We will bring you another great show. We'll entertain and inform, but my apologies for the audible here. So hopefully next year things are a little bit more chill and we'll have some time with our great members and bring you some of their thoughts. But as far as 2025 goes, I can tell you it was a great event. Check our socials out for some of the coverage. By the time you hear this, I imagine the press release will already have gone out, but if not, we'll break news. Republican side, as again, we are bipartisan, but a little fun, friendly competition between the R's and the D's. Republicans took it home. I don't remember the exact score on the thing, but they won it. So there you go, breaking news there. I believe they won the year before, so they retain the championship trophy cup, which is currently on our stories on Instagram and Facebook, so you can check that great trophy out. That's our show for this week. We'll wrap it up. Again, if you guys are out there still turkey hunting, be safe. Get home safely to your families. Do all the safe stuff in the woods. Hope you bag a gobbler. Hope you're able to fill some tags still wherever you're hunting. And we will see you all next Wednesday for another Roundup. This week's feature that drops tomorrow from the original drop of this show. I bring you Mark Duda. Mark joined us, CSF up here in the Northeast, specifically Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Mark and his purchase of a 3-state, 2-day, each state turkey tour, supports CSF, was able to bid on that and won it in an auction at NASC last year in Baton Rouge. And we appreciate Mark's support, and I can't wait to bring you a recap of his time, what he thought there, and then Mark being of responsive management. Many of you in the policy space will recognize Mark immediately, know his work. And even if you don't know, chances are you're familiar with some of the stuff he's done over 3 decades plus. So great conversation coming to you tomorrow on the feature episode. Mark Duda of Responsive Management. Tune in and check that one out. That's it. That's the show. As always, CSF is... Oh, before I get out of here, don't forget to go to congressionalsportsmen.org, check out all the freebies, sign up for the TSV newsletter, sign up for the Tracking the Capitals. Things, there's still sessions going on. There's still bills moving. Get all that free stuff. Enjoy it. Share it about. Now, that's the show. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you next week. So long. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.